Folks, Sean here, and in this episode, I want to talk to you about the different ways you can start and build a B2B SaaS product business and the unprecedented advantage that's made available to us these days because of the latest developments in technology, and I'm primarily focusing on artificial intelligence from companies like OpenAI and their products like ChatGPT. Now, traditionally, you had really two options. You could go the VC fundraising route, or you could choose to bootstrap. For various reasons, which I've talked about in detail, I'm a much bigger advocate for the bootstrapping route. The VC world is just distracting, to say the least, and time-consuming, very expensive, very limiting. Bootstrapping doesn't require you to have to jump through those hoops if you can do that successfully. But the advantage that we have available to us now today is what I want to talk about. And I am constantly measuring it because I'm still following the bootstrapping strategy primarily, but I'm comparing the products that I'm building with the products that the competition is building. And what I'm finding when I'm evaluating many of the competitors is they're still taking the traditional VC fundraising route. Now, for the most part, if you raise, that's essentially kind of like the unicorn path, as I typically call it. If you want the opportunity to build a company that may someday be worth $1 billion, it's kind of hard to do it if you're not going to fundraise that way because it's insanely resource intensive, time, money, etc. However, the reason why I'm such an advocate for bootstrapping over fundraising is the odds of that are ridiculously low, less than 1%. So you might as well just play the lottery from my perspective. Instead, the focus is on building a proper business, creating one that's profitable, sustainable, and all the other advantages you get with bootstrapping as well too. And that you maintain control, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want to, you can work it as much as you'd like, you can do it full-time, part-time, whatever, right? You really don't have those conveniences if you're going to fundraise. But what I've found so far in the comparison between the products I'm building now and the competition is that the competition that is taking the traditional approach, they're raising millions of dollars and they're hiring tons of people. So my Shorts Maker product, for example, that product has been built by me and the help of a part-time developer for a couple $1,000. And when I look at some of the competitors in the industry, they've raised over $5 million in some instances and have 15, 20 people on their team, which is a pretty significant payroll. So even with what they have raised, which seems to be quite a bit of money, they'll be out of that relatively quickly if they can't continue to raise. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that nowadays you can keep up with or make greater progress than companies with significantly more resources in terms of like how many people they have, so the size of their team, how much money they've raised as well, because of the development and technologies which we can use to make these products do things much more impressively, much more quickly, and cost effectively, like OpenAI's ChatGPT. Now, having said that, these other companies are leveraging those technologies too, but for some reason they're still sticking with the traditional path. I don't necessarily see why that's required. Like, I'm not going to fault anyone for wanting to do that, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need to do that, and you can do exactly what I'm doing, and that's keep up with much larger companies with a lot more resources, and in some instances beat them with significantly less. Now, all of them doing that is great proof of concept and great validation for me because I have a product that's as good, if not better than theirs, and I've gotten it much, much easier and much more cost effectively. Plus, we would scale much more cost effectively as well because I don't have all that crazy overhead of all those people and haven't raised all that money. Here's the thing. If you raise all that money, if and when you're going to have an exit, you need to sell for a lot more than that number. Otherwise, your investors are just not going to vote for, you selling. You can't sell for $5 million. You raised $5 million, probably at a valuation 10 times that or something like that. So if you sell for anything less than that, that is a huge loss. Versus if I sell for $5 million, that is a win all day, every day. So it affords those conveniences as well. And that's where the control comes into play, but also what you're comparing yourself to as well. Last thing I want to say on this topic for today is that I've never believed that software companies, SaaS companies, that the objective was to go raise a giant check and then hire as many people as you can. That to me sounds kind of like a nightmare. Now you have probably grown too fast. You've got a lot more overhead, and it's going to be much, much harder to move as quickly as you once were. Like that stuff can pay off potentially in the long run, but what ends up happening is these software companies hire way too quickly. They hire way more than they could ever need, and that bloat really starts to slow them down and affect the results of what they're capable of accomplishing. As such, the faster they grow, the bigger they grow, more often than not, the easier it's going to be for you to actually beat them, which is, I think, a changing of the tide to a certain extent. Not a lot of people are taking advantage of this, which is why I wanted to share it with you, in that software companies are intended to be built to be scalable, and hiring tons and tons of people, that's not scalable. So yes, at some point you might want to do that, but not yet, not this early in the game. So keep this advantage, leverage these technologies, and dominate the competition with significantly less resources, which is going to give you way more advantages than they're ever going to have.